Hi, my name's Annette, Sunbeam Fabric Art. I've been sewing and crafting since I was just a little kid. I think that sewing, quilting, and crafting should be just as fun as possible. So let's get started. Hi folks, welcome to my channel. Just want to tell you, if you like my channel, hit that subscribe button, that'll help me out. I just finished emptying out my scrap drawer like 3 weeks ago, and guess what? It's full again. This is only a small portion of the scraps I have again. I want to take you through turning one of these free shopper totes that you probably have laying around at your house into something really cool and fun. Not these ugly, nasty totes, but we'll make something fun just using some scraps. So come along. Well, here is my ugly bag. It's stained, it's ugly, it's boring. It does have a very sturdy inside and bottom. The bottom was stitched to the sides, so it's really sturdy. I can't wear it out, but gosh darn it, I really want to make it pretty. The first thing I'm doing on this bag is I'm cutting down the middle of each side all the way through straight to the bottom, and I'm stopping at the bottom. And this is going to make that bag shape. I'm going to leave a link in my description here for a video I took you through to make a bag from start to finish like this, a custom size, whatever size you want. A lot of the methods are the same. With both sides pinned together, the left and the right side of the bag, I measured halfway, made a little snip. Then using that snip as a guide, I just cut straight down the center. I could have marked this, but I just eyeballed it. And there we have it. And we cut from left to right across the bottom of the bag so that this bag will open up. I squared up my openings for my box corner. If you're doing this bag in a custom size, just make sure your width is double your side length. In my case, the measurements are 4 inches and 8 inches. For my lining of my bag, I just used this tan fabric that is just an extra laying around, and I laid it down with the fold closest to me, with the selvage edges away from me. Then I folded my bag in half and laid it down, and then I cut outside of my bag so I'd have exactly the size of lining that I need. Once I had that cut out, I just laid the green bag on top of my lining. I did take a minute and I put pins all the way around the outside and a couple of places on the inside to hold these two layers together. With all my scraps piled up, it was time to start having fun. So I find it pretty funny that in the last 2-3 weeks since I emptied out my scrap drawer, I now have another full drawer of scraps. Amazing. I'm using a large rectangle for the bottom of the bag. That is a larger scrap that I had on hand. I'm going to take a strip across the bottom of the bag, and then I'm going to sew right sides together what will be the new bottom of this bag. After I stitched that down, I opened it up. Then I did 3 lines on the bottom of the bag, just stitch lines, to hold everything together. It took me a minute to decide what kind of pattern or how I wanted to sew these scraps onto this bag. The first thing I'm going to do is sew this strip with a folded down pressed edge onto the strip at the bottom. That folded strip is going to give me a nice finished edge that will cover up the raw edges of my scraps. I finger pressed that strip back, then I drew a little dashed line on the edge of the strip. Once that dashed line was done, I took the ruler and drew a straight line 1/4 inch away from the dashed line so I would know how far in to put my scraps. And now the fun begins. I took 2 scraps, laid them down on that line that I drew, because that way when I fold over that strip, all those raw edges are going to be covered up. And then I stitched them together, right sides together, and pressed open with my finger, and then I kept adding strips. And here you can see how my plan came together. I folded over that strip, stitched that folded edge down, and I didn't have to worry about those raw edges. I continue this process with strips of the beige, with one side folded over to cover up those raw edges, drawing lines, dash lines first and then a solid line with the ruler, and sewing down my scraps. I then went back and top stitched down the other side of those beige strips just for a cohesive look. And here is how the bag looked after all the strips and scraps were sewn down. I really like the way it turned out. It's super cute. Now it's time to finish that bag. Next, I trimmed all the way around the bag. I was making sure not to go outside the lines of that green bag. I tried to keep it pretty even with that bag. Once I had one side trimmed down, it was a simple matter to just flip it over to the other side and use that as a guide to trim the other side. I had a lot of this green strap that I had made previously. To make that, I used a 4-inch wide piece of fabric, folded in half, and then folded in half again. Then I inserted a piece of batting into the folds, put it back together, and then I stitched down either side to make my handle. Rather than fold my strap over on the end to cover up the raw edge, I just made myself a little casing. I took a little square, folded over 2 sides, tucked my strap end into the casing and folded it over again. Then I put a little clip in it to hold it until I was ready to stitch it down. On the right side of your bag, you need to measure where your straps will go and put a pin in those. Then you will top stitch those down, leave about 1 inch before you get to the top of the bag, and do not stitch all the way to the top of the bag. And here you can see I used a zigzag stitch on both sides of my straps. Okay, the next step is to pin that strap out of the way because we're going to be sewing the front and the back of the bag together. Then we're also going to be putting on a lining around the top, a binding around the top of that bag. With the straps out of the way, we can put the right sides of the bag, the front and the back of the bag together, and we're going to stitch down each side to put the front of the bag attached to the back of the bag. I stitched a straight stitch and then I went back over it with a blanket stitch to finish that edge. To stitch down the box corner, we're going to pull that bag apart with that side seam in the middle of the box opening. You'll want to stitch these box seams with a generous 1/2 inch seam allowance. Then I trimmed down to a 1/4 inch and did a blanket stitch to finish it off. I had extra binding in my scrap bin and I used that to finish off the top of this bag. So it's basically a 2.5 inch strip of fabric and it's folded in half. I stitched that binding all the way around the bag on the wrong side. Then I folded it over and stitched it on the right side. When I turned the bag right side out, I did double check all my corners. You'll want to double check those corners and make sure there's nothing sticking out. If there is, you can go back and re-stitch it. I stitched my binding to the front of the bag with a zigzag stitch, but you can use whatever you like. And finally, we're to the last step, which is to unpin those straps and finish stitching them to the bag, and do any more top stitching on that strap that you want to do. I really like the way this bag turned out. I hope you do too. And I hope you have fun with your scraps. They can be a lot of fun. Just go with it and do something fun today. Have a great day. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.